Ordinary Tuesday, when everything shattered. I'd left work early, a canceled meeting giving me an unexpected afternoon off. On a whim, I decided to head home, thinking it might be nice to surprise my wife, Emma. No warning signs, nothing out of the ordinary, just a regular day. The house was quiet, but something felt off. I moved through the hallway slowly, my footsteps silent against the hardwood floor. I could hear Emma's voice coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone, her tone low and soft, like she was sharing a secret. Curiosity got the better of me, and I stopped outside the door. At first, I couldn't make out the words, just murmurs. Then I heard it. A name. Brian? A pause. Then the words that sent my world spinning. Yes, Brian, I'm pregnant with your baby. My heart stopped. I felt the air leave my lungs in a rush, as if I'd been punched. Pregnant, not with my child, but with his. I stood frozen, my mind reeling, trying to process what I had just heard. Emma, the woman I had built my life with, was having an affair. I stood there, my body paralyzed by disbelief. Emma's voice continued on the other side of the door, but I wasn't really hearing her anymore. It was just noise, a background hum as my brain tried to catch up with the brutal reality that had just been dropped on me. Pregnant, with another man's child. I couldn't wrap my head around it. This was Emma, the woman I had loved, trusted, and shared my life with for the past 8 years. So we had plans, dreams, a future. And now she was pregnant with her boss's child. I felt my stomach churn, a sickening wave of nausea rolling through me. I gripped the doorframe to steady myself, fighting the urge to burst in and demand answers. But what would I even say? What would I do? Instead, I stayed frozen like some kind of coward, listening, waiting, trying to make sense of it all. I could hear her laugh softly, a sound that used to light up my world but now felt like a twisted mockery. I'll tell him soon, she whispered into the phone. I just need the right moment. The right moment. I nearly laughed at the absurdity of it all. There she was, planning how to break the news to me, all while casually chatting with her lover about their baby. Our marriage wasn't even a factor anymore, it seemed. Just a side note in her new life with this guy, Brian. My mind flashed back to the last few months, and suddenly, everything made sense. The late nights at work, the vague excuses, the distance growing between us. I had noticed the changes, of course, but I had been too trusting, too stupid to believe they could mean something like this. I had convinced myself that we were just going through a rough patch, that things would smooth out. I had been a fool. I backed away from the door, careful not to make a sound, my heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't face her, not now. Not yet. My anger was boiling beneath the surface, but there was something deeper to this overwhelming sense of loss. It was like the life I had known, the life I had built, had been ripped away from me in an instant, leaving nothing but a hollow shell. I made my way quietly back through the house, grabbing my keys off the counter with a shaky hand. I needed air. I needed space. Most of all, I needed time to think. My mind raced as I walked out the front door and into the driveway. Should I confront her? Should I scream? Should I demand to know every sordid detail? I had no idea what the right move was, but I knew I couldn't stay in that house, listening to her lie with every breath she took. Without another thought, I got into the car and started driving. I didn't know where I was going, just that I needed to get as far away from there as possible. Away from her, from the truth I wasn't ready to face. I drove for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 30 minutes. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my mondocles were white, my mind spinning in 1,000 directions. Every time I tried to focus on one thought, it slipped away, replaced by the image of Emma whispering into her phone, confessing her pregnancy to Brian. Brian, the name alone made my blood boil. Who the hell was this guy? I hadn't even heard of him until today. My wife and I had never talked about him, never mentioned her boss like he was anything more than a name on a pay stub. But now I couldn't shake the image of them together, Emma and Brian, laughing, sharing secret moments, all while I had been sitting at home, completely oblivious. How long had this been going on? Months? Years? I wanted to slam my fist into something, break the silence that now seemed to crush me from all sides. But there was no release, no way to make this better. Every possible scenario just led me back to one undeniable truth. My wife had betrayed me, and she was carrying another man's child. I pulled into a deserted parking lot, barely noticing where I was. Some old, run-down gas station that had long since been abandoned. and I killed the engine and sat there, staring out at nothing. My reflection in the windshield looked back at me, eyes hollow, face pale. This wasn't supposed to be my life. This wasn't supposed to happen to me. For a few minutes, I just sat in the stillness, letting the shock settle in. Then the anger returned, hotter this time, more focused. How could she do this to me? How could she lie day after day, pretending like everything was normal while sneaking around behind my back? The more I thought about it, the more furious I became. This wasn't some mistake, some one-time slip-up. This was an ongoing affair, a betrayal that had roots I hadn't even seen forming. And now there was a baby. A baby. A living, breathing reminder of her infidelity that would grow inside her, that would change everything. Even if I could somehow find it in me to forgive her, to try and salvage what we had, how could I ever look at that child and not think of him, Brian? The thought made me sick to my stomach, gritted my teeth, trying to hold back the rage that bubbled just below the surface. Part of me wanted to drive back home, confront her right now, and tear into her for what she'd done. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, the part that remembered all the good years we had, was too numb to act. I didn't know if I had the strength to face her or not yet. As the minutes dragged on, I began to feel the weight of exhaustion settling over me. I hadn't realized how tired I was, emotionally and physically drained from the discovery. I leaned back in the driver's seat, staring up at the sky, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I must have sat in that parking lot for what felt like an eternity, lost in my thoughts. The sun had dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. A dull ache throbbed at the back of my skull, the kind that comes from too much thinking and too little understanding. I wanted answers, but I didn't even know where to start. How does someone go back after this? How do you walk into the same house, look into the same eyes, and pretend that everything hasn't been torn apart? I didn't have any illusions about confronting Emma and magically fixing what was broken. This wasn't some simple argument we could work through with apologies and promises. It was a betrayal deep, raw, and unforgivable. I turned off the car and got out, needing to stretch my legs, to move, to do something to shake off the growing tension inside me. My feet crunched over the gravel as I walked aimlessly around the parking lot. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of everything I had just learned was pressing down on me with each passing second. What stung the most wasn't even the betrayal itself. It was the realization that I had been blind to it all. I had trusted her so completely, never doubting her for a second. I thought we had built something real, something strong. Now I felt like a fool. A blind, naive fool who had missed all the signs, the late nights at work, the sudden distance, the way she would avoid talking about her day in detail. Had she even loved me at all during these past few months, or had everything been a lie? My mind raced with 1,000 questions, each one more painful than the last. I had thought we were building a life together. Now it seemed like that life was nothing but a fragile house of cards, one that had collapsed the moment I overheard her conversation. I kicked at a loose rock, watching it skid across the pavement. I didn't even know what my next step should be. Should I call her out on it? Storm back home and confront her, force her to admit everything? But then what? What would that solve? She was already pregnant. There was no undoing that. Even if she broke it off with Brian, even if she begged me to stay, the reality of her infidelity would hang over us forever. And the baby, how could I ever be a part of that child's life, knowing it wasn't mine? I stopped walking and leaned against the car, my heart racing with the weight of it all. The rage I had felt earlier was still there, but now it was tempered by something darker, something colder grief. I wasn't just angry. I was heartbroken. I had lost something today. My marriage, my trust, my belief in the life we had been building. It was all gone now, shattered beyond repair. And as much as I wanted to march back into that house and demand answers, part of me wasn't ready for the truth. Not yet. I needed time, space, and clarity before I faced her, before I decided what came next. I don't know how long I stood there, leaning against my car, staring into the distance. The world around me seemed to blur, and I felt disconnected, like I was watching everything from outside my own body. It was surreal knowing that my life had changed in an instant, yet I was still here, breathing, thinking, while everything I thought I knew unraveled around me. Finally, I forced myself back into the car, knowing I couldn't stay in that parking lot forever. The questions kept circling in my mind. What now? How do I go home and face her? What do I even say? Should I yell, scream, demand explanations? Or do I stay calm, ask her to tell me the truth on her own? I could feel the anger boiling up again, but there was another feeling rising inside me to fear. A deep, gnawing fear of what I might discover if I really confronted her. There was no going back once the truth was fully out there. And what if she confirmed everything I had overheard? Could I handle it? Could I even stand to look at her? As I started driving, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I picked it up, half expecting it to be Emma. But it wasn't. It was a text from my buddy Josh asking if I wanted to grab a beer later. For a moment, I considered going, drowning myself in a few drinks, pretending for a while that everything was still okay. But the idea of sitting in a bar, making small talk about sports or work while my marriage crumbled in the background seemed impossible. I tossed the phone aside, focusing on the road. My hands were still shaking slightly on the steering wheel, and my mind was racing with images of Emma and Brian together. I tried to picture it, but every time I did, my stomach twisted in knots. I remembered our last anniversary just a few months ago. We had gone out to dinner at her favorite Italian restaurant. She had worn that red dress I loved, and I'd been so happy, so content. Now I wondered if she had already been seeing him by then. Was she thinking about him that night while we sat across from each other, laughing and toasting to another year together? The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. Was any of it real? Had she been living a double life, playing the role of the loving wife while sneaking off to be with someone else? I felt sick, betrayed in a way that went beyond just physical infidelity. She had taken everything we had built together, every memory, every moment, and tainted it with her life. The house came into view, and my heart pounded in my chest as I pulled into the driveway. It was like a different place now, no longer the home I had known. It felt foreign, hostile, like the walls themselves were hiding secrets from me. I sat there for a moment, staring at the front door, trying to summon the courage to walk inside. I wasn't sure if I was ready to face her, but I knew I couldn't keep running forever. One way or another, I had to deal with this. But how? How do you confront someone you've loved for years when they've just ripped your heart out? I turned off the engine, took a deep breath, and opened the car door. Whatever happened next, it was time to face it. I stepped out of the car, each footfall heavier than the last as I approached the front door. It felt like walking into enemy territory, but this wasn't supposed to be a battlefield. It was our home. The place where we laughed, argued, made love, and shared dreams. Now every brick of it seemed tainted with the knowledge that Emma had been hiding a part of herself from me. I stood there for a moment, my hand hovering over the doorknob. I could hear my pulse pounding in my ears, each beat a reminder that there was no going back from this. Whatever conversation was waiting inside that house would determine the future of everything. Our marriage, our home, our lives. With a deep breath, I turned the knob and stepped inside. The house was quiet, eerily so. The only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. I closed the door softly behind me, my eyes scanning the room as if expecting Emma to appear out of thin air, but there was no sign of her. For a second, I thought maybe she'd left, maybe she had gone out escaping the reality of what she'd done the same way I had. But then I heard it. The soft sound of footsteps coming from the hallway, growing louder as Emma approached. She appeared at the entrance to the living room, her face lighting up in surprise. "You're home early," she said, her voice casual, almost cheerful. It was like nothing had happened, like everything was perfectly normal. I felt a surge of anger rise in my chest, but I pushed it down, struggling to keep my composure. "Yeah," I replied, my voice stiff. I wasn't sure how to begin. Should I just lay it all out there? Tell her I knew? Or should I wait? See if she'd admit anything on her own? Part of me wanted to explode, to unleash every emotion boiling inside me, but another part of me, the rational part, wanted to hear her version first. She walked closer, smile faltering as she noticed my expression. "Is everything okay?" I stared at her, searching her face for any signs of guilt, of fear, but there was nothing, just confusion. For a moment I almost questioned myself. Maybe I had misheard. Maybe this was all a mistake, some awful misunderstanding. But I knew what I'd heard, and I couldn't let her pretend any more. "I know, Emma," I said, my voice low but steady. "I know about Brian. I know about the baby." Her face drained of color in an instant, the shock flashing across her eyes like a bolt of lightning. She took a step back, her hands trembling slightly as they fell to her sides. For a moment she was completely still, like a deer caught in the headlights, unsure whether to run or to fight. "Max," she began, but the words caught in her throat. She swallowed hard, her gaze dropping to the floor as tears welled up in her eyes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Sorry? I repeated, my voice rising with the anger I had been trying to contain. You're sorry. For what, Emma? For cheating on me? For lying? Or for getting pregnant with another man's child? She winced, the tears spilling over now, but she didn't say anything. There was nothing left for her to say. The truth was out, and there was no taking it back. I felt my hands clench into fists at my sides, my whole body shaking with the effort of holding myself together. This was the moment I had dreaded, the moment where everything fell apart. And as much as I wanted to scream, to rage, to demand answers, I knew that no explanation would change what had happened. No apology would fix this. You've destroyed everything, I said, my voice breaking. Everything we had, everything we built. Emma collapsed into the nearest chair, burying her face in her hands as sobs racked her body. But I couldn't comfort her. Not anymore. I turned away, feeling the weight of everything settle on my shoulders as I walked out of the room. I walked upstairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. My mind raced with the whirlwind of emotions I had been holding back. Anger, disbelief, heartbreak, they all collided, threatening to suffocate me. I needed space. I needed to think. But how could I think when every corner of this house reminded me of her, of us, of the life we had built together? The bedroom door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open, my eyes scanning the room that once felt like a sanctuary. Now it felt foreign. The bed where we'd shared countless nights of intimacy and comfort felt like a mockery of everything we once had. I sat down on the edge of it, burying my face in my hands, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. I could still hear Emma crying downstairs. Part of me wanted to go back, to ask her why, to demand the details of how she had let this happen. But another part of me didn't care anymore. The damage was done. The marriage we had was gone, shattered beyond repair. The baby. That was what haunted me most. It wasn't just an affair. It was a child, a permanent reminder of her betrayal. I couldn't escape it. No matter what happened, this would always hang over us. Over me. I sat there for what felt like hours, numb, trying to figure out what came next. After what felt like an eternity sitting in that room, I realized that no amount of silence or solitude would make this decision any clearer. I stood up, my legs heavy, and looked around the bedroom one last time. Memories flashed before me, our wedding night, lazy Sunday mornings, whispered conversations in the dark. All of it seemed distant now, like it belonged to someone else's life. The room was no longer a sanctuary. It had become a prison, filled with ghosts of what we once had and what we could never have again. I walked downstairs, and the sound of Emma's soft sobs reached me before I saw her. She was still in the chair where I had left her, crumpled, her face buried in her hands. The sight of her like that, so small and broken, stirred something inside me, but it wasn't sympathy. It wasn't even anger anymore. It was just emptiness. She looked up as I entered the room, her eyes swollen and red, the tears still flowing. "Max," she said in a shaky voice, as if trying to find the right words, but knowing none existed. "Please, I didn't want this to happen." Stood there, staring at her, trying to summon the energy to respond. But what was there to say? What words could fix this? I had questions, sure, but did I even want the answers? What difference would it make? She had made her choice. It didn't matter why. "I don't care," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. "It's too late." Emma stood up, her hands trembling as she took a step toward me. "Please, Max, I can fix this. I'll leave him. I'll do anything to make it right. Just give me another chance. I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head, feeling a bitter laugh rise in my throat. "You're only sorry because you got caught." The words felt like a slap, and I watched the truth of them sink into her. She had lied, deceived me, carried on with another man for months, and now she wanted to act like we could just patch things up, as if this was some mistake we could work through. "There's nothing left to fix," I said, my voice colder now. "You're pregnant, Emma, with his child. You think we can just move past that?" She crumpled again, this time sinking to her knees in front of me, pleading. "I'll end it," she whispered desperately. I'll end the pregnancy. We can start over, just us. Please, Max." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks, and for a moment I was speechless. Was she really willing to do that? To end her pregnancy for a chance at repairing our broken marriage? But the thought didn't bring me any comfort. It only deepened the pit of despair in my stomach. The idea of her making that choice for me after everything was too much to bear. It wouldn't change the betrayal. It wouldn't erase the lies. I took a step back, putting distance between us. "It's over, Emma," I said, each word a final nail in the coffin of our marriage. "I can't do this. I can't be with you anymore. Not after everything." Her sobs grew louder, but I had nothing left to give her. No forgiveness, no second chances. I turned and walked out the front door, the weight of everything finally crashing down on me as I stepped into the cool evening air. The marriage was over, and so was the life I had known. I didn't know where I was headed, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't stay there any longer.